Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about the morning's continued cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the dramatic centerpiece and showdown on which the defense's hopes are riding. Let me start by saying I was not in trial this morning, nor will I be there this afternoon, but I've been following it very closely, pretty much minute by minute. It does reinforce to me, though, how being in court is really quite a privilege that really lets you hear the nuances of tone in the questioning and see the expressions on the witness's face, as well as monitor the jurors and the like. It's clear that Todd Blanche, who is handling the cross-examination, has decided to come out more aggressively, and he also had an initial subject that was tailor-made for really pushing Cohen around, and that is Cohen's different lies in actual court proceedings. So Cohen has already said and said on direct that about the different times he lied to Congress. And one proceeding actually not involving this case, but involving Trump. Then there's this sort of big convoluted one that he actually has tried to explain and push back on rather than simply saying, yes, I lied, because that involves his suggestion after pleading guilty and we, learned about this, or he testified about it at some length on Tuesday, to 7 counts in the Southern District of New York, and then there was another one in Congress, that he wasn't really guilty of some of them. And so that is just tailor-made for being whipsawed by the Todd Blanche questioner saying, so you lied under oath even when you said you had been lying, et cetera. What Cohen was trying to do, he obviously still feels very bitter, and he thinks he was handled quite roughly and disproportionately by the system, all the more galling to him because Trump got a pass to date. But what he's basically saying, and he has done his best to clarify, is the facts in the plea were true. I wasn't lying about having done those things, but he felt that the charges were somewhere between unfair and overblown, and he is, especially chafed at the hardball tactics of the prosecutions in the Southern District of New York. Now, this is not the Manhattan DA, because he says that they gave him an 80-page indictment of even more extensive charges that involved his wife, who was sort of dragooned in potentially on some of the tax matters. Again, those don't involve Trump, and said you have 48 hours or we're bringing this indictment. So what he wants to maintain is that's the reason he did it, rather than feeling, in his heart and soul he was guilty, but the facts are accurate. But he thinks, he was the subject of selective prosecution or something along those lines. Of course, so do many defendants. But the question is, what is it, in fact, when you're pleading guilty? This is something you have to say. You're pleading guilty because you're actually guilty. And he did sort of bob and weave there, and bobbing and weaving is almost always not a good idea for a witness. That was one kind of tricky moment for him. And then there was another involving Blanche's going over his whole job history and his desire for a plum job in the White House after Trump's election, and an effort to suggest that the reason he's so retributive and wanting to actually get at Trump now is because he didn't get the job he wanted. Now, he testified on direct that what he wanted was a counselor, to a sort of special hybrid job where he would be doing for Trump the president what he had been doing for Trump the citizen. But he also testified that he wanted at least to be in the hunt for the chief of staff job, that because of his ego. And Blanche kind of went to town on that, and because he had mentioned it to a number of people. So he basically had a lot of ammunition, did Blanche to work with, saying, you wanted this, didn't you? And Cohen had, retreated to the line of, not really, but my ego was hurt for not being considered. And that was really an excellent answer that he maintained. Other than the one he got slightly riled up in the back and forth having to do with the lies and he got a little bollocksed up about, did he lie when he said he was guilty, etc. He has, this is sort of the headline here that I have buried, you could say, or sort of fronted. He has kept his cool, basically. So we're now sort of 5 hours into the cross. It will go at least for the afternoon, but that might be it. And they haven't really rattled him. But much more that they were talking about, and Schiller has tried more strongly. So this suggestion today that he's a total flagrant serial liar, even under oath. And then the second big suggestion is he's doing this to Trump and making it all up and lying because he felt jilted, not having gotten a good job in the White House after having been so loyal for so long. Blanche again drew a lot of objections, a lot of improper questions. At one point he said, the jury doesn't want to hear about that, which is really a stupid thing to say. It's not only immediately objectionable, but the jury's sitting there, and I think a natural reaction of them is, we know what we want to hear about and what we don't hear about, Mr. Counselor. You don't have to tell us. All right. They then, shortly before the lunch break, turned to a convoluted line of questioning that, just as lunch came, seemed perhaps to be paying dividends to the defense. So it had to do with, and it involved a kind of laborious going over of phone records and a claim by Cohen that he told Trump about the Stormy Daniels situation as soon as it surfaced, but he did it by calling Keith Schiller. And he had testified sometimes, he would call Schiller if that's where he knew the president was, sometimes Melania if that's where he knew the president was, sometimes Hope Hicks. All right, so he's testified. This is the time he calls to tell about Stormy. And they go through this complicated scenario where Cohen is getting prank calls at the time from some 14-year-old kid. We don't know exactly about it, what it's got to do. And the jury was sort of scratching its head when they were talking about it. But then Blanche, through what seemed like a pretty methodical, fairly effective line, was able to isolate the call in question. And basically, Cohen was forced to testify around lunch that in this one relatively short phone call, he both got Trump on the phone and told him about Stormy Daniels, and told Schiller about the prank calls and, wanting them to get the Secret Service to make it stop, or, I'm not sure what exactly he thought Keith Schiller could do, but he was irked by the calls. Yeah, there was testimony that he basically texted the guy, I'm taking to the Secret Service, and he got back, I'm just a 14-year-old kid, please don't do this. But the importance for the testimony is the call that he has testified went to Trump really not one that went to Trump, but rather went to Schiller and Schiller alone in order to complain about and try to get the Secret Service to intervene about this 14-year-old kid. That's the basic high points and thrust of the testimony. It's clear Blanche tried a few times to sort of torque it up and get dramatic and basically signal to the jury, I am now, really bringing home something that's very damaging to your credibility. By reports, this is one of the reasons I love being in the courtroom, but by reports, the jury started out pretty attentive, especially in the beginning line of the things he might have lied about even under oath, but especially in the convoluted setup to whether the call to Schiller was for the prank calls or for Stormy or both. They reportedly got less attentive, and there's more of a sense of fatigue in the room. It's one of the downsides of, you want to be very, I don't know that Blanche has messed this up, but you want to be very selective in where you, on cross, you are perfectly able to do this and mount kind of high emotional moments. Isn't it a fact, in Mr. Cohen, that you, and jury will take notice, but one, you better be able to pay it off to cash that check of it being a big admission, and two, you do it too much, and there's a kind of a letdown fatigue factor. You really have to choose those carefully. I'm not saying Blanche didn't, because I wasn't there, but it seems consistent with his having been too elevated too often. The reports that the jury at the just before the lunch break was kind of flagging a bit. Of course, it also could just be low blood sugar before lunch. Anyway, I would say the short headline is a couple good shots landing by Blanche, but Cohen basically holding to his very calm, unrattled testimonial posture, and then ending, we're going to recommence with what he can try to make of this call to Schiller. A little bit of scheduling came up. There was, we talked about this, I taught in a YouTube yesterday, what'll happen if they don't go to summations on Tuesday, because no court Wednesday or Friday, and he wouldn't want to give them the case on Thursday and then they just go away for 4 days. He recognized that himself and said, we may try to have court Wednesday, but then a juror quickly informed him that they couldn't. So that's now off the table. So scheduling wise, we're in the same kind of quandary. The defense has said they're ready to go Monday. They suggest they'll have one election witness. It's probably Brad Smith, who was the subject of extensive pretrial litigation and really has very little that he can testify about. The government has suggested they might have a rebuttal witness if the defense does that, their own expert. And of course, the defendant, said in their cat and mouse way, we haven't decided yet whether Trump's going to testify. Always do that. Somebody's going to have to prepare to cross him. And Littman Axiom 1, I do not think he will testify. Okay, so a slightly more effective morning overall. On the other hand, opportunity cost. This is the big event for them, and it's not enough to sort of rough them up a bit around the edges. They got to really, smash them in the nose, as it were, and that doesn't seem to have happened or anything even close to it. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.